Welcome to the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. Here's your host, Brien Hanley.
Hey, everybody, what's going on? This is your man, Big B, Brien Hanley, and welcome back to Big 12 Insiders. Lord have mercy, people. Just when you think that this conference, we've got a little bit of a lull. Maybe this week, the games, they're not quite as good. We're going to get a breather from all the chaos that has happened within this conference this year. And boom, even more chaos than what has happened all season happened on a weekend where there were only 5 football games, and you couldn't really pinpoint one to make a marquee matchup. That is this Big 12 conference, people. It has been turned upside down on its head again. And this is what we love about the Big 12. It's chaos. It's tough if you're a fan of a team that you believe should be winning these football games. But for a guy like myself that covers this conference and just loves competitive football, couldn't be more excited. We're going to break all of what happened this past weekend down for you guys, man. Thank you guys for tuning in. Before we do, remember to continue to like, follow, subscribe. Continue to leave those comments and always hit the notification bell so you know when Big 12 Insiders content is coming out. Let's get into this, people. So first up, Arizona State goes to Stillwater and just dismantles Oklahoma State. Look, Oklahoma State has quit, okay? They are a pathetic football team that has quit. They've thrown in the towel. They couldn't do anything. They couldn't have looked any more uninterested. But you know what I'm not going to do? Is take credit away from Arizona State. I'm not going to do that. Arizona State made Oklahoma State look like that. They made them look like a team that quit. Arizona State, number one, is bowl eligible. They just battered Oklahoma State around the entire football game. Give Arizona State all the credit because that's what a lot of people are going to start doing these days, as we get further and further down the road here and playing some of these bad football teams. And let's not make any mistake. Oklahoma State is a bad football team. They tend not to give credit to the teams that win the game. And you know me, I'm going to give those teams those credit. I'm going to call it right down the line, the way that I see it. Whether you agree with it or not, that's something different. But I'm going to call it fair as I possibly can. Arizona State, just a much better team. Cam Scatteraboo, he did his thing trying to be the MVP of this conference. What he had, 274 yards total offense, 3 touchdowns. Sam Levitt comes back, throws for 309? Yeah, and 3 scores, or 304, and 3 scores. It was just a complete domination. ASU, congratulations, number one, on being bowl eligible. But I think that Arizona State's got its eyes on something a little bit more than just being bowl eligible because they are right in the thick of this Big 12 title race, to be that race to get to Arlington. They're right in the middle of that. Congratulations, but I think you got more on the horizon. Moving on, UCF, I don't even know. Now, if you want to say one game was ridiculous, this one was ridiculous. Why Arizona even made the trip to South Florida or to Central Florida, technically, I have no idea. This game was over. The only drama about this UCF Arizona game was if UCF was going to literally score a touchdown on every possession. They scored touchdowns on 8 of 10 possessions. It was just an absolute destruction. Look, a lot of Arizona, they've quit, number one. Let's call that out. And they may have quit on their coach, too, because there was a lot of proud Arizona alumni that were looking forward to this season to say, we should be, but we're going to have a good season. And they thought they were going to be better than this. And for them to take this much of a step back, I've always said this, people. And look, I don't call for anybody's job. That's not what I do here. But I will say this, and I always say this. It's okay to make a mistake. It's a bad thing to live in the mistake. And I think a lot of Arizona alumni are like, hey, man, we made a bad hire here, but we don't want to live in this mistake. So we'll see what happens, with that coaching situation there. Because, again, you got to coach at the last home game, an hour before game. He's out smoozing with boosters. He's not locked in. Let's just be honest. But, again, give credit to UCF. They've been going through a rough patch here as of late. They get off the snide, score 56 points in an absolute blowout. They also may have found their quarterback. Took them this long into the season to be able to find that guy, but they may have found their quarterback. Dylan Risk throws for 294 yards, 3 touchdowns, also ran for another 55 yards. Again, UCF thought they were going to have a better season. The season's not over. Maybe they can salvage something. Like I said, they could always run it. RJ Harvey, again, doing his thing. Would he go for 184? I mean, just doing wind sprints up and down the field on an Arizona team that just didn't compete. Let's just put it like that. But, again, UCF made them not compete. I will say that. Arizona's checked out, but it's UCF's job to go blow them out, and UCF just blew them out of the water. Good for you. And hopefully this can be the turnaround to see if you guys can cause some more damage in this Big 12 conference. Baylor moves to 5-4, 3-3 in the conference. I don't think there's a person alive that thought Baylor would be here a month ago. And when Baylor lost to Colorado, did you think, oh yeah, Baylor, they're going to end up, at 9 games in, they're going to be 3-3 in the conference and 5-4? That nobody thought that. But I've said it before, and I'll continue to say it. Baylor never quit. And because they didn't quit, you knew they had some talent. It was just a matter of them getting over the hump. Well, they got over the hump, and now they're playing really good football. Look, this was a good football game, people. Back and forth against TCU. They win the game as time expired with a field goal. They win 37-34. Good for both teams. Like I said, Josh Hoover threw for 333 yards. They did what they needed to do to be into the game. This was one of those back and forth affairs where the team that had the ball at the end was going to end up winning. It happened to be Baylor. Ran the clock, made a drive, kicked a field goal at the end of the game, and won. One thing is Bryson Washington. Whew. Ran for 196 yards and 4 touchdowns. Baylor's got something going right now. If I'm a top team within this conference, and again, I don't want to play Baylor right now. Baylor's in a good way right now. So I don't want to play Baylor if I'm anybody right now in this conference because, again, it was never about Baylor not having the talent. They had the talent. They just had to figure out a way and put all that talent together and figure out a good plan and a way to win. Well, they've got that plan now, and they're winning football games. Congratulations. One more game to bowl eligibility. But, again, another team that, yeah, they want to be bowl eligible and go to a bowl, but I think they want to win out. I think Baylor's looking to try to win out here and end up winning 8 football games. We'll see how that goes for them. Now we get to the upsets of the week. Look, I was a person that left Texas Tech for dead. I can admit when I am dead wrong, and I was dead wrong. I thought, you know what? You get blown out. And look, Texas Tech fans were like, hey, man, give us our respect. And I'm like, you can't get respect when you give up 59 points to Baylor at home. You just can't get respect. But then you gain a little respect the next week because although you gave the game away against TCU, and you did give it away, you lost by a point. You battled back when you didn't have to. You had the lead. I give you all the credit in the world. But then you go to Iowa State, and then you go pull off this upset. You're going to get my respect now, And again, I can admit when I'm wrong. I was wrong because I'm like, there's no way Texas are going to go. They're coming off 2 losses in a row, especially the way they lost last week. They're not going to Iowa State and winning. Well, dagnabbit, they went to Iowa State and won. My man, Jared Johnson, he said, there's a saying about Texas Tech. This is a totally Tech thing to do. We lose 2 games that we should have won. And then we go beat a nationally ranked team on the road. Well, they went and did that. And just for the record, I don't want people to look at this game and say, oh, man, Texas Tech, they played out of their mind. And, this was not a perfect Texas Tech game. This was not a game where Tech was flawless and just played above their head. And no matter what Iowa State did, Tech had an answer for it. They were just spectacular and just played unbelievable football. No, that's not what happened. Tech made errors. They turned the football over twice. This was not a flawless football game by Texas Tech. They had a plan. They could run it when they wanted to run it. They could throw it when they wanted to throw it. and they went and won the football game. Period. End of story. There was no special craziness that happened in this football game. But I told you guys, man, the difference with there's bad football teams in this conference. But once you get past those bad teams, the margin for error with everybody else is razor thin. Well, here's your perfect example. Tech wins 23-22 at Iowa State. I mean, look, Iowa State didn't turn the ball over 10 times or something like that. No, that's not what happened. They moved the ball on offense. They went up and down the field when they needed to, from time to time. And again, they had the lead late. They took the lead late. Their defense, which had been kind of their calling card all year, just couldn't hold the lead. That's what happens. Again, this was an outstanding football game, but give Tech credit. They earned not only my respect, but a lot of people's respect, because I think we were ready to put the nail in the coffin on Tech, and they said, hold on a second, not yet. And by the way, if you look at the standings, Tech's right there in the Big 12. They've only lost two Big 12 games. They're right there. There's a lot of teams that have only lost 2 games. And we'll get to the next game here to kind of open the door for a lot of things right now. But this conference got turned upside down on its head. This is one of the games that caused that effect. Give all the credit to Tech. Iowa State, again, I'm not going to blame Iowa State. They didn't do anything bad. They just got beat by a team that maybe or maybe not they're as equal to them, but they lost. That's what I know. And it wasn't some crazy thing that happened in this football game while they lost. No, you just got beat. That's what the Big 12 conference is, man. It's chaos. And then moving on to the final game of the weekend. It technically wasn't the last game played. Houston beat Kansas State 24-19. Look, now there's been Kansas State fans out there that have lived in it was windy, it was raining, it got delayed. I'm not going to let you do that, man. I'm not going to let you do that. Houston won this football game because Houston physically whipped Kansas State at the line of scrimmage. Period. End of story. They, on defense, look, Houston had a pretty good defense. We all knew that. But they put it to the test against Kansas State and just said, you're not going to run the football in between the tackles. You're just not going to do it. And Kansas State couldn't do it. And until Kansas State, look, it's been like this the last couple of weeks, until they figure out you can't run them. Teams are not going to let you run it in between the tackles. You got to make a change. You got to make another plan. You're not going to run it. Well, Houston said, no, you're not going to do it. We're physically better than you are. Our defensive line and our defensive front is way more physical than your offensive front. And it was. And it showed. Period. End of story. Look, Houston, the quarterback, Chris, was 11 for 11. Let me repeat that. He was 11 for 11 in the football game. Now, he ran for 75 yards. He was 11 for 11 in the game. Not the greatest passer in the world, but he didn't have to be. He was efficient. He threw to guys that were running down the field wide open. Kansas State secondary has struggled all year. This was not a game where you looked at and said, oh, yeah, Houston's playing out of its mind. No, it didn't. Houston really didn't do a whole lot. They took advantage of a ton of special teams mistakes that Kansas State made. They were the more physical team at the line of scrimmage, and they won the game. Period. End of story. It wasn't some magic potion that I know people are wanting to look for in some of these upsets. I'll say it again, people. The margin of error in this conference is razor thin. And, oh, by the way, Houston is not one of those teams that's the worst team in this league. That's not the case. I know people are trying to make that be the case. It's not. Not the case at all. Big win for Willie Fritz. Gets a huge signature win in year one. I said this from the beginning, and people laughed at me. I said, Houston's going to beat some teams that you don't expect them to beat in year one. Well, they've done it a couple of times. I'm just telling you, people, wait until next year when Willie Fritz gets out some of the people that are still non-believers and gets in more people that are going to be believers. I've said it before, Houston, with the recruiting access they have in the state of Texas, just the Houston area alone, they are a sleeping giant when it comes to football. Willie Fritz, good win. I mean, great win. But this conference, people, look, I just don't know what else to say. Colorado is like, thank you, Houston, and thank you, Kansas State. Colorado is now right there at the edge of being able to move up. Look, I don't know what the tiebreakers are between them and Iowa State because they don't play, but I know Iowa State's got to play Kansas State. And if they were to slip up and Colorado wins out, Colorado's going to the college football. Well, here's what I would say. And I know what you're going to say. Well, that doesn't mean they're going to win the Big 12. If you don't think that even if Colorado goes to the Big 12 title game and they lose to BYU, but they're in the Big 12 title game, if you don't think that the college football playoff is going to take a Coach Prom Colorado team, you are out of your mind, because we all know it's about eyeballs. We all know that that's what this thing is about. Well, who's getting more eyeballs than them? I mean, seriously. You have the teams in the SEC and the Big Ten, and then there's Colorado. They're going, but you got to win out. Season's not over. BYU, nobody's still talking about them. Undefeated in this conference, doing everything they need to do. I love this conference, man. I know it's chaos. I know that it's tough being a fan of a team that you think is supposed to win every week. But that's what college football is, or that's what it's supposed to be anyway. That's what it's supposed to be. I know people want to bag on transfer portal and NIL, but it's made it to where every team every year can win. And isn't that what we like? Don't we like parity? Didn't we complain that it was always the same teams every year? Well, now it's not. And especially in this conference, we have no idea who's going to win. No idea. And I think that's great. I think it's great not for college football, but for the Big 12 conference specifically, man. So I appreciate everybody tuning in. I appreciate you guys watching, giving me your feedback. We're just getting started with this thing, man. I know we've been doing it since July. I appreciate everybody's support. Continue to like, follow, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you know exactly when Big 12 Insiders content is coming out. We appreciate you guys. We will talk to you soon. Power rankings coming out tomorrow, man. You don't want to miss that. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for watching the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. This has been a Spirit Street production.